Yeah, well, I found him because it was actually my wife had him. I had the disc, had him. She wishes. I had the disc, and it came on one night, and you hear that opening tune of Mojo Pin. It's that real soft, that haunting thing off in the distance, and I remember asking her, what is that? And she says, that's Jeff Buckley. And where have I been? What, do I know nothing? And since then, it's just been a bit of an obsession, I guess.
Jeff Buckley's story is one of luminous talent, artistic daring, and a tragic brevity. In the history of modern music, few figures embody the idea of a shooting star quite like he does. He was unique and gone too soon. His singular voice, his only completed studio album Grace, and his enduring influence continue to ripple through generations of musicians and listeners alike.
Into his world. I met him once.
Did you really?
I interviewed him.
Have you interviewed
I
him?
interviewed him.
When?
Oh my gosh, I was
Where?
in Auckland,
No.
in a bar in Ponsonby, and it was one of the last tours
What
that
did you
he
do?
did.
He was doing tours, that's what I was about to say.
He was out doing shows. Funny guy, very
So
self-depreciating.
how long ago is that? If that was he touring the record then, or was
I'm
it
trying
after?
to think. I was in New York when I found out that he passed away, which would have been 1997, so it must have been 96.
Yeah, I remember when he died. My mum was really sad.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
was so sad.
Jeffrey Scott Buckley was born on November 17, 1966, in Anaheim, California. His life was touched by music from the very beginning. His father was Tim Buckley, a folk and jazz influenced singer-songwriter who himself had gained cult acclaim in the late 1960s before dying at the young age of 28. Yet Jeff grew up largely estranged from his father, raised instead by his mother, stepfather, and grandmother. The shadow of his father's reputation loomed over him, but Buckley initially resisted comparisons. As a teenager, he immersed himself in diverse musical worlds with Led Zeppelin, Johnny Mitchell, Nina Simone, and Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, and classical composers. His education in music was eclectic, grounded in rock and jazz, but expanded by an intense fascination with global sounds and traditions. By his 20s, Buckley had become a skilled guitarist and vocalist, working as a session musician in Los Angeles before making the pivotal decision to move to New York City in 1990. In New York, Buckley gravitated toward the East Village, a neighborhood with a thriving art scene. He began performing at a tiny cafe called Sin E, where he would enchant small crowds with just his voice and a guitar. His sets were wide-ranging, covering Edith Piaf, Bob Dylan, Van Morrison, and Pakistani devotional songs, alongside his own compositions. It was here that the music industry began to notice him. Buckley's performances were mesmerizing, marked by a hauntingly elastic tenor that could rise from a whisper to a soaring wail. His emotional honesty combined with virtuosic guitar playing created an almost spiritual experience. Word of mouth spread quickly and Columbia Records signed him in 1992. Before his full-length debut, Buckley released a live EP, Live at Sin E, in 1993, which captured the raw intimacy of those cafe performances. It was a preview of what was to come.
Patiemment Jeff Buckley, il est là ce soir pour sa première télé en France. Pour nulle part ailleurs, Jeff Buckley.
In 1994, Jeff Buckley released Grace, the only completed studio album of his career. Recorded with his band Mick Grøndal on bass, Matt Johnson on drums, and Michael Ty on guitar, the album was a bold, genre-defying statement, and Grace is not an easy album to classify. It blends alternative rock with folk, jazz, classical, and even Middle Eastern influences. The centerpiece and perhaps the most famous track is his rendition of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Unlike Cohen's low meditative version, Buckley's interpretation is a thorough, sensual, and devastatingly emotional. It has since become one of the most celebrated cover songs of all time, and for many listeners the defined version. Other highlights include Mojo Pin, a song of obsession that builds from delicate fingerpicking into a soaring climax, the title track Grace with its mix of grandeur and vulnerability, and Last Goodbye, a bittersweet ballad about love's end. His song Lover You Should Have Come Over is often cited as a pinnacle of his songwriting, weaving longing, regret, and hope into one of the most heart-wrenching vocal performances ever recorded. At the time of his release, Grace received mixed reviews in the US. Some critics found it overly ornate, while others hailed it as genius. In the UK and Europe, however, the album was embraced with fervor. Over time, as the cultural landscape shifted, Grace came to be recognized as a masterpiece, consistently appearing on greatest albums lists.
How do you want to be remembered?
As a good friend. I don't really need to be remembered. I hope the music's remembered.
Buckley was playing and we went to see him and it was mind-altering. His voice, spectacular singing and so much conviction.
Yeah.
You know.
I saw him in a tiny room in Café Chenet in New York once.
Yeah.
And he was just bigger than the room.
What makes Buckley's legacy so remarkable is the breadth of artists who have praised him. Bob Dylan famously called him one of the great songwriters of this decade. David Bowie counted Grace among his all-time favorite albums. Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin admired his talent deeply, while Thom Yorke of Radiohead acknowledged Buckley's influence on the band's early work, especially on the Bends and OK Computer. Even artists outside of rock, such as Rufus Wainwright and Adele, have spoken about how Buckley's voice shaped their own artistry. In Adele's case, she cited listening to Buckley's Lover You Should Come Over as a transformative experience that made her cry for days. Coldplay's Chris Martin has often mentioned Buckley as an inspiration for his own vocal style. Buckley's impact is not only in his recordings but also in the mythology of his artistry, uncompromising, deeply emotive, and unafraid to explore vulnerability. Just as his career was gaining momentum, tragedy struck. By 1996, Buckley was working on his second album, titled My Sweetheart the Drunk. He had relocated to Memphis, Tennessee, a city whose musical history fascinated him. And in May 1997, while awaiting his band to join him for record session, Buckley decided to take a spontaneous evening swim in the Wolf River Harbor, a tributary of the Mississippi River. Singing Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love as he waded in, he was pulled under by the wake of a passing boat. His body was recovered several days later. He was only 30 years old. The world of music was stunned. Just as Jeff Buckley's brilliance was being recognized, it was extinguished. His posthumous releases, including the double album sketches For My Sweetheart the Drunk in 1998, gave glimpses of what might have been, songs that show a progression into more experimental territory, but which remain incomplete. Jeff Buckley's career lasted barely a decade, with only one completed studio album, yet his influence has proven enormous. He stands as a rare artist whose reputation has only grown since his passing. His voice, a 4-octave marvel, capable of intimacy and thunder, remains unmatched. His interpretation of Hallelujah alone has immortalized him, becoming a touchstone in popular culture, used in countless films, television shows, and tributes. But beyond one song, Buckley represents the ideal of artistic authenticity. He did not chase commercial formulas or trends. Instead, he sought transcendence in music, something larger than himself. That pursuit, though brief, left behind a body of work that continues to inspire.